Well, I think this is probably what everyone's kind of wondering, I should not asking. But we talk about the NIST framework. We talk about this layered security approach. We talked about what's happening in the world that we're living in. But let's say worst case scenario, if something happens, we get breached. What do we do if we get breached, not only on the IT side, but also what do we do on the insurance side? I think this is something that people think about a lot, and they're like, I actually have no idea what I would actually do. So I know they have a ton of insight into this and can give you guys, real examples and show you what you do if you find yourself in this situation.
Yeah, and I can jump on this one to start. If you have a concern of any sort of suspicious behavior or that there may be a breach, obviously you should be contacting, your IT folks, your managed service provider, contacting Databranch. Odds are we will already be working on it if you're currently a client, and we have alerting and monitoring and different things in place. So IT plays a very vital, central role in that, right? Is there an actual breach, right? Reviewing the incident, what's happening, what sort of indicators of compromise or footholds could be in the system. And then once it's either strongly, if it's confirmed, or if you have a strong suspicion that there may be a true full-scale breach or incident potentially happening, that's when you put your incident response plan into place. And one of the key components that I'm going to guess many people don't know is the role that insurance plays in that, and cyber insurance. So basically, you're talking to IT, you confirm a breach or you have a suspicion of a breach. The first thing to do is put in incident response and contact your cyber insurance policy holder, like a both Branch and Hendricks, and say, here's what's happened, here's what our IT folks are saying, what do we do now? Right. So Mike, do you want to kind of walk us through that scenario? I'm sure you've had it in the past where you've had to get called and it's like, hey, we've got an email compromise, or we've got suspicious behavior. Here's what we've done in-house. We've been either advised or just reached out to you on their own. And then what's the next step, and what role does the cyber insurance policy play in that?
Yeah, and to kind of restate what you said, Mike, when we've had clients that if you have an IT provider that knows your systems, has set up your systems, manages your systems, they're the first place to call when something's getting a little crazy. And if it's determined that you have had a breach, and sometimes it's really apparent, your screen basically says, we've taken your system, and if you want it back, you need to pay a certain amount of Bitcoin. That would be the ransomware attack. So what happens at that point, it's important to get your cyber insurance agent involved. And we've had real life experience with this. And essentially the way that it works is, if you have cyber insurance and we get that call from you or from your IT provider, we contact the cyber insurance company. The cyber insurance policy itself, what it provides is 24/7, 365 service, so that when that call comes in, our experience has been, once we get them, we report the incident to them via their 800 number. We provide them with the client's name and the client contact. And if we know the IT professional that they have, we give them their contact information. Our experience is within 20 minutes, if we're able to coordinate, when we coordinate that the specialists now are logging into your system to try to determine what happened. How do we stop what's happening? How do we quarantine it? And then they'll start working in a process of what will it take to restore your system. So as I mentioned before, all the IT safeguards are necessary in order to get a cyber insurance policy. And when human error happens, even in the most innocent way, what the cyber insurance does is it brings not only the money to pay for your restoration, but it also brings in the expertise that'll work with your IT specialist. And the firms that the insurance companies work with, they deal with this type of situation, only this type of situation, every day, all day, 365 days a year. So they can complement what your IT people are doing by bringing that expertise in. So when we look at breach response, again, they're going to identify what's going on with your system. Probably in 98% of the cases that I've had, within a half an hour, they know exactly what's going on in your system. They can identify what's going on. They can identify the bad actors who maybe are in your system. And what they'll do is at that point, it determines their level of response as to whether it's a matter of just shutting stuff down and buying yourself some time, or they can just easily quarantine people and the bad actors so that they don't continue doing what they're doing. So the cyber insurance policy gives you those experts to do that. They will then work with your IT specialists to restore your systems and eradicate whatever the issue is. The other thing the cyber policies will bring, and this is due, I mean, everyone talks about privacy. We have state and federal privacy laws. And depending upon your business and the type of information you have on your system, you have legal requirements to advise certain agencies if you've had a breach. So with the insurance policy, and part of that is you have to do a forensic search to determine how did they get in, where did they go, and what did they have access to. Again, the cyber insurance policy provides the expertise to do that, but importantly, they also provide legal representation. And the nice thing with that is upon providing an attorney who is well-versed in privacy laws for state and federal, is you now have someone who speaks the language of the regulatory agencies, so that if you are required to respond to them and advise them that you've had a breach, these attorneys know the language that these regulatory agencies will acknowledge, and they remove the vagueness so that you kind of put them back a little bit on their heels so that they're not breathing down your throat right away. Plus, you have an attorney involved. So what we've seen happen in that situation is that everyone involved, because there is an attorney, you have attorney-client representation. We had a situation with a medical facility who had a breach. They were being contacted by news media when word got out about that, and they referred them to the attorney provided by the cyber insurance company to respond. So that's a great thing to have. The other part of the cyber insurance is that it will protect you for third-party claims. So more and more, all of us are using, just like my agency, we have cloud-based databases that we're using. All of my clients are in the cloud. And I want to believe, and I do believe, that my cloud-based provider has all kinds of security. But what happens if my system gets compromised and through social engineering, they learn my password and my ID to access the cloud-based provider? Well, hopefully the cloud-based provider, if something's happening there that looks unnormal to their normal form of business, they would shut it down. But they're going to say, well, how did they get here? And if they discover my systems are compromised, I could have an issue with my cloud-based provider as far as cost. So when we look at all these things, we're saying what the cyber insurance brings is not only the specialist to help you through the situation and work with your IT provider, but they also bring the money to pay for it. In the claims that we've had, the simplest claim took less than 48 hours to resolve, and the bill was under $50,000. The worst case scenario that we've had, they actually went through the policy limits, and that was over $1 million. So they exhausted that. And to give you an idea of what we saw in both those situations, the one that was resolved in less than 48 hours, was that they had all the IT safeguards, but they also had a great restoration process in place that they could go back and restore their system from backups. And the other scenario, they had not invested in their IT solution and their IT safeguards, and the ransomware that came in released a virus that actually attacked their backup software. But the backup software was so old that in order to get a fresh restore of it, the software is not being made anymore. And it really compounded the issues with this company. And a lot of times we talk about this, and we're talking about cyber, we're talking about hacking, we're talking about people getting in your systems. It may happen instantly enough that one time, Mike, I know you're aware of this, and Amanda, our own file server, we got a bad update from our software company. And I came into work and saw the famous blue screen of death. And I thought, oh no, what happened? And I contacted Databranch, and we were back up and running within 20 minutes. We had to do a bare metal restore. I love that word. because it sounds very dramatic. We don't have those in the insurance business. And that was enabled because we had data and we were back up, fully restored, I'm going to say within 3 to 4 hours. So we were lucky, but we also made those investments to get us to that point. So that's a very important part of all of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll jump on that real quick as well, Taylor, before we move on. I know we're getting a little short on time, but the forensic and the legal representation piece, Mike, are things that I don't think I honestly didn't know that until maybe a year ago about the legal component that is in cybersecurity policies. So this all kind of segued into it. There's a question in the chat: is a hacked email account considered a breach? And like a lot of the questions that we were talking about earlier, it depends. So one of the things I learned from the legal folks that were on the call is that everything is considered an incident until they know what was touched, who saw it, what was exfiltrated potentially, because it depends. Once it's a breach, that's when I believe some of the legal components come into play that say this was a breach and now these folks, these people have to be notified in a specific window of time. So that's where, again, the legal component, legal representation, not just from a reputational aspect, like Mike had said, with media outlets reaching out, but knowing who to contact, what to be able to tell them, and who to notify if there was a true breach. That's just a key component that, without cyber insurance, you're scrambling. Maybe you've got, in-house representation. Maybe you have a law firm you're working with, but do they know the details and the specifics and have done the cybersecurity component of that for, making sure that you are compliant with reporting to different regulatory bodies, state, county, et cetera. So I just wanted to kind of, round back on that real quick, because it's something that, again, even as an IT professional, I didn't realize the legal component of a cyber insurance policy.